Dr. Han Jisoo stared through the observation window of the research vessel Pterodon. Her eyes were fixed on something that made most humans run away in fear, but she didn't feel afraid. She felt curious. The creature floating outside was huge. It was 3 times the size of an elephant, with dark scales that shimmered like oil on water. The aliens that everyone called Ravagers had attacked 15 colonies in the past year. Yet this one wasn't attacking. It was watching them. "Dr. Han, you need to leave the observation deck now." Captain Kim Dooha's voice came through the speaker. His voice was firm but calm. That thing could break through the reinforced glass at any moment. "Captain, please give me 5 more minutes," Jisoo replied. She pressed her hand against the cold glass. "Something isn't right about what we've been told about them." The Ravager outside tilted its head. The movement reminded Jisoo of her old German shepherd when it heard a strange sound. The creature had 6 eyes, each one glowing with a soft purple light. Its long tail moved slowly back and forth, like a cat watching birds. "They told us these creatures can't think, that they just kill and eat everything they see." Jisoo spoke into her recorder. "But this one is studying us. It's showing clear signs of intelligence." 2 more Ravagers appeared behind the first one. Instead of attacking, they lined up in a formation that Jisoo had seen before, in documentaries about wolf packs. The way they moved around each other, the way they seemed to communicate with small gestures, it all looked familiar. "Captain," Jisoo called out again. "I want to try something. Please don't shoot them unless they actually attack." She pressed a button on the wall. The external lights of the ship changed from white to a soft blue. The Ravager's response was immediate. They moved back slightly, then forward again. Their tail movements changed. They were responding to the signal. "They're like Earth's pack predators," Jisoo whispered into her recorder. "They're not mindless killers. They're social creatures with their own language." The largest Ravager, the first one she'd seen, moved closer to the window. It was so close now that Jisoo could see patterns in its scales that looked like ancient writing. It raised one of its 4 front limbs and pressed it against the glass, right where Jisoo's hand was. Alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Red emergency lights flashed in the corridor. Jisoo could hear people running and shouting. "Dr. Han, get out of there right now." Captain Kim's voice was urgent. "We're picking up 20 more Ravagers approaching the ship." But Jisoo didn't move. She kept her eyes on the creature in front of her. "Captain, they're not here to attack us. Look at their formation. Look at how they're moving. They're curious about us, just like we're curious about them." The new group of Ravagers arrived. Instead of attacking, they arranged themselves in a circle around the ship. The one at the window finally moved back, joining its pack. They stayed there, watching, waiting. "Send this recording to Earth Command," Jisoo said, her voice shaking with excitement. "We've been wrong about them all this time. These aren't monsters. They're intelligent beings with their own society. And I think they want to talk to us." As she spoke those words, the Ravagers began to move in a synchronized pattern. It looked like a dance, their massive bodies flowing through space in perfect harmony. Jisoo smiled. She knew that this moment would change everything. How humans saw the Ravagers, and how the galaxy saw humanity. The most feared creatures in known space were not what everyone thought they were. And it took a human's ability to see past fear, to recognize patterns from Earth's own history, to understand this truth. Dr. Han Jisoo had just opened the door to one of the greatest discoveries in human history. The real question was, what would they learn next? The meeting room on the Pterodon was packed. Every senior officer and scientist had gathered to hear Dr. Han Jisoo's report. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Captain Kim Dooha stood at the front of the room with Jisoo. On the large screen behind them, videos of the Ravagers' peaceful encounter played on a loop. The images showed the massive creatures moving in formation, touching the ship's window, and performing their synchronized dance. "What you're suggesting is impossible," said Chief Security Officer Park Minji. She pointed at the screen. "These creatures have destroyed entire colonies. They've killed thousands of people." Jisoo took a deep breath. "I know how it sounds, but look at Earth's history. Look at wolves." She pressed a button, and the screen changed to show images of ancient wolves and modern dogs. Thousands of years ago, wolves were one of humanity's greatest threats. Now they're our closest animal companions. The room filled with doubtful whispers. Captain Kim raised his hand for silence. "Dr. Han, please explain your theory in detail." Jisoo nodded and stepped forward. "The Ravagers show all the signs of pack predators, just like Earth's wolves. They hunt in groups. They have complex social behaviors. They communicate with each other, but most importantly, they show curiosity and intelligence." She played more footage from their encounter. "Look at their movements. See how they respond to changes in our ship's lights. How they mirror our actions. These aren't the behaviors of mindless killers." Lee Sung-min, Jisoo's research partner, stood up. "I've analyzed the data from our sensors. The Ravagers produce complex patterns of energy signals when they interact with each other. It's not random, it's language." The room was silent as everyone watched the footage again. The Ravagers' graceful movements in space, their careful approach to the ship, their organized formations, it all looked different now. But what about the attacks? Someone asked. Why would they destroy our colonies? Think about wolf packs encountering human settlements for the first time. Jisoo explained. They attacked because they were afraid, because they were protecting their territory, or because they were hungry. We never tried to understand the Ravagers. We just labeled them as monsters and started shooting. Captain Kim stepped forward. "Dr. Han has submitted a proposal to Earth Command. She wants to attempt communication with the Ravagers using methods based on how humans first domesticated wolves." More whispers filled the room. Some people looked scared, others looked angry, but a few showed interest. "This is crazy," Park Minji said. "You want to try to make pets out of the most dangerous creatures in known space." "Not pets," Jisoo corrected her. "Partners. Friends. Just like how wolves became dogs not because we forced them, but because both species found benefits in working together." She played one final video. The moment when the large Ravager had pressed its limb against the window, matching her hand. "They're already trying to communicate with us. We just need to learn how to listen." Captain Kim looked at the room. "Earth Command has reviewed Dr. Han's proposal. They've given us permission to try, under strict safety protocols. We'll be the first ship to attempt peaceful contact with the Ravagers." Jisoo smiled as she saw more people starting to nod. Change was never easy, but humans had a special gift. The ability to see past their fears and find friends in unexpected places. "We've done this before," she said softly. 15,000 years ago, our ancestors looked at fierce wolves and saw potential companions. Now we have a chance to do it again, but this time, among the stars." The meeting ended with a mix of hope and worry. As people filed out of the room, Jisoo stayed behind, watching the videos of the Ravagers. Soon, she would begin the greatest challenge of her life. Teaching humanity how to make friends with the creatures they feared most. Dr. Han Jisoo and Lee Sung-min floated in their reinforced spacesuits outside the Pterodon. They had been waiting for 3 hours. According to their calculations, this was one of the main travel routes for Ravager packs. "Are you sure about this?" Sung-min asked through the radio. His voice was steady, but Jisoo could hear his worry. "Trust the data," Jisoo replied. She checked her suit's sensors again. They were ready to release special signals that copied the energy patterns they had recorded from the Ravagers. Captain Kim's voice came through their radios. 3 Ravagers approaching from Sector 7. Remember, at the first sign of danger, you return to the ship." Jisoo looked in that direction and saw them coming. Their huge bodies moved smoothly through space, their scales catching the light of distant stars. She recognized the largest one by its patterns. It was the same creature that had pressed its limb against the window 2 weeks ago. "Starting the sequence now," Jisoo said. She pressed a button on her suit's control panel. The suit began sending out pulses of energy that matched the patterns they had recorded from peaceful Ravager groups. It was like speaking their language, saying we are friendly in their own way. The Ravagers stopped. All 6 eyes on each of their faces glowed brighter. The largest one moved forward slowly while the others stayed back. It was exactly what Jisoo had hoped for. They were following pack behavior, letting their leader check for danger first. "Hold position," Jisoo told Sungmin. "Let them come to us, just like we planned." The lead Ravager came closer. Its massive head was bigger than both humans combined. It moved in a smooth circle around them, studying them carefully. Jisoo and Sungmin stayed still, their suits continuing to send out the friendly signals. Then something amazing happened. The Ravager made its own energy pattern, one that closely matched their signal. It was trying to communicate back. "Recording everything," Sungmin whispered. "This is incredible." Jisoo slowly raised her hand, just like she had done at the window. The Ravager watched her movement carefully. Then, just as it had done before, it reached out one of its limbs. The limb was twice as long as Jisoo's whole body. It could have crushed her suit with no effort. Instead, it moved with surprising gentleness and touched her outstretched hand with just the tip of its limb. "First contact established," Jisoo said, her voice full of joy. "They remember us. They remember our greeting from 2 weeks ago." The other Ravagers moved closer now. They started making their own energy patterns. Each one was slightly different, like different voices in a conversation. "Look at their tails," Sungmin said excitedly. "The movements match what we saw in the wolf pack videos. They're showing acceptance." For the next hour, humans and Ravagers floated together in space. The creatures moved around them in beautiful patterns, sometimes coming close, sometimes moving away. They were teaching the humans their dance. "Jisoo," Captain Kim's voice came through the radio. "You need to come back soon. Your suits only have 2 hours of air left." "Understood," she replied. She looked at the lead Ravager. "We need to show them we're leaving, but that we'll come back." They sent out a new pattern of signals, one they hoped would mean goodbye for now. The Ravagers watched as Jisoo and Sungmin slowly moved back toward the ship. To everyone's amazement, the lead Ravager raised its limb one more time, touching Jisoo's hand gently before backing away. Then the whole pack performed their synchronized dance one last time before disappearing into deep space. Inside the ship, the crew watched in stunned silence. The most feared creatures in the galaxy had just shown them something no one had ever seen before. They had shown them trust. "We did it," Jisoo said, removing her helmet. "We made first contact. Real contact. And this is just the beginning." 3 months had passed since the first peaceful contact with the Ravagers. The Pterodon's observation deck had been transformed into a special communication center. The walls were covered with screens showing different energy patterns and body language signals of the Ravagers. Park Minji, who had once doubted the entire project, now stood beside Dr. Han Jisoo, studying the latest recordings. The fear in her eyes had been replaced by fascination. "Look at this pattern here," Minji said, pointing to one of the screens. "They make this signal every time they greet the same pack member. It's like saying hello to a friend." Jisoo nodded, making notes on her tablet. "And it's different from the signal they use when meeting new Ravagers. They have a complex social language, just like we thought." The large Ravager they had first met floated outside the window. The crew had started calling it Cloud because of the way its scales shimmered like clouds in moonlight. Cloud had visited the ship almost every day, bringing different members of its pack to meet the humans. Lee Sungmin rushed into the room, holding new data readings. "Jisoo, Minji, you need to see this. We finally decoded their heat patterns." The 3 scientists gathered around Sungmin's screen. The Ravagers didn't just communicate with energy signals. Their bodies also made complex patterns of heat, like a changing rainbow that only special cameras could see. These heat patterns show their emotions, Sung Min explained. See this warm red pattern? Cloud makes it every time we greet him. I think it means he's happy to see us. Jisoo remembered how people had laughed when she compared Ravagers to dogs. But now they could see the truth. These huge space creatures had feelings just like Earth's animals. They could be happy, curious, or worried. They remembered faces and had favorite people. Watch this, Minji said. She pressed a button that made the ship's lights dance in a special pattern. Cloud immediately responded with his own pattern of light and heat. Then he did something that made everyone in the room gasp. Cloud opened his mouth, showing rows of teeth that could tear through metal. But instead of looking scary, he curved his mouth in a way that looked just like a smile. He had learned this expression from watching the humans. He's copying us, Jisoo whispered. Just like how dogs learn to smile because they saw humans doing it. They're not just letting us study them, they're studying us too. Captain Kim's voice came through the speaker. Dr. Han, Earth Command is calling. They want a full report on the communication progress. Tell them we've made more progress in 3 months than we thought possible, Jisoo replied. The Ravagers aren't just intelligent. They're teaching us as much as we're teaching them. Cloud pressed closer to the window. His 6 eyes glowed softly as he watched the humans work. The crew had stopped jumping in fear when they saw him. Now they waved and greeted him like an old friend. There's something else, Sung Min said, showing another data screen. Look at these patterns. I think they're trying to tell us about their home. Jisoo looked at the complex signals Cloud was making. After 3 months of careful study, they were finally starting to understand not just how the Ravagers communicated, but what they wanted to say. Send a message to Earth Command, Jisoo told Captain Kim. Tell them we're ready for the next step. The Ravagers want to share their story with us, and I think we're finally ready to hear it. The emergency alarms on the Pterodon screamed through every corridor. Red lights flashed as crew members ran to their stations. Captain Kim Duha's voice came through the ship's speakers, calm but urgent. Main engine failure detected. Backup systems not responding. All crew members prepare for emergency protocols. Dr. Han Jisoo held onto a wall rail as the ship shuddered. Through the observation window, she could see sparks shooting from the engine section. The Pterodon was deep in space, far from any help. Temperature in the engine room is rising. Lee Sung-min reported from his station. The cooling systems are offline. We have maybe 2 hours before critical failure. Park Min-ji rushed into the room. The damage is on the outside of the ship. We need to repair it, but our repair drones aren't working. The radiation from the engine damage is too strong. Jisoo looked out the window. Cloud and 3 other Ravagers had been visiting when the crisis started. Instead of fleeing, they stayed close to the ship, watching with what seemed like concern. Captain, Jisoo called through the comm system. I have an idea. The Ravagers, their scales protect them from radiation. They might be able to help us. There was a long pause. Dr. Han, are you suggesting we ask them to repair our ship? They understand us better than we think, Jisoo replied. She moved to the communication panel and began sending out the energy patterns they had learned over the past months. Cloud moved closer to the window. His 6 eyes focused on Jisoo as she used light patterns, energy signals, and hand gestures to explain their problem. The other Ravagers gathered around him. Look at their heat patterns, Sung Min said, checking his instruments. They're talking to each other. They understand something is wrong. Suddenly, Cloud turned and made a loud signal, different from anything they had heard before. Within minutes, more Ravagers appeared from deep space. They gathered around the ship, moving in complex patterns. What are they doing? Captain Kim asked over the comm. They're organizing, Jisoo answered, watching in amazement. They're creating teams, just like we do in an emergency. Cloud led a group of Ravagers to the damaged engine section. Using their huge but gentle limbs, they began removing the broken parts. Other ravagers brought pieces of space debris, metal and materials they had collected during their travels. "They're not just removing the damage," Minji said in wonder. "They're helping us repair it. They're using their understanding of our technology to fix our ship." For the next hour, the crew watched as the ravagers worked. They used their natural abilities to handle the radioactive materials, their strength to move heavy parts, and their understanding of energy to help redirect power away from damaged areas. When they finished, Cloud returned to Jisu's window. He made the same gesture they had shared during their first meeting, touching the glass where her hand was pressed. "Engine temperature dropping," Sungmin reported. "Power systems stabilizing." They did it. They actually fixed our ship. The news spread quickly across human space. Videos of the Ravagers helping repair the Pterodon were seen everywhere. The creatures that everyone had feared had just saved a human crew. "They didn't help us because they had to," Jisu told Captain Kim later. "They helped us because that's what friends do. Just like how dogs didn't stay with humans because they were forced to. They stayed because they chose to be our companions." Cloud and his pack remained with the ship as its engines powered back up. They had proved something extraordinary. The most feared beings in space could also be the most loyal allies. Earth's first contact center was the largest building in New Seoul. Its great halls had been specially designed to welcome alien visitors. But today, it was hosting its most unusual guests yet. Dr. Han Jisoo stood in the main hall, watching as Cloud and 5 other Ravagers floated gently through the enormous doors. Their massive bodies moved with surprising grace in Earth's artificial gravity. Engineers had worked for months to create a space that could comfortably hold creatures of their size. "Welcome to Earth," Jisoo said, using both words and the energy patterns they had developed. The Ravagers responded with their own patterns, creating beautiful waves of light and heat that the special cameras recorded. Lee Sung-min approached with a cart full of different Earth foods. Over the past months, they had learned something surprising about the Ravagers. They were deeply interested in how humans prepared their meals. "We discovered that Ravagers don't just eat for survival," Jisoo explained to the watching scientists. "They have their own way of preparing food. They use their energy abilities to cook their meals in space." Cloud moved closer to the cart, his 6 eyes glowing with interest. He watched carefully as Sung-min lifted the covers from different dishes. The smells filled the air: grilled meat, fresh vegetables, warm bread, and sweet desserts. "Their sense of smell is amazing," Park Minji said, monitoring the Ravagers' reactions. "They can detect flavors we can't even imagine. And they love trying new things." Cloud made a gentle sound, a kind of humming that they had learned meant pleasure. He reached out with one of his smaller limbs and carefully picked up a piece of grilled beef. The watching crowd held their breath. No one had ever seen a Ravager eat Earth food before. The meat disappeared into Cloud's mouth. His scales rippled with changing colors, showing his reaction. Then he made the expression they had come to recognize as a smile. "He likes it," Jisoo said, grinning. "Now, Cloud, would you show us how you prepare your food?" Cloud moved to a special area they had set up. Using his energy abilities, he created a field of shifting forces around a piece of raw meat they had provided. The field glowed with beautiful colors as it cooked the food in a way humans had never seen before. When he finished, Cloud offered the prepared meat to Jisoo. The crowd watched nervously as she took a small bite. Her eyes widened in surprise. "It's delicious," she said. "It tastes like the best slow-cooked meat I've ever had, but with flavors I can't even describe." The other Ravagers began showing their own cooking techniques. Each one had a different style, creating different flavors and textures. The human chefs in the room took notes, amazed by this new way of preparing food. "This is more than just eating together," Jisoo told the reporters who were recording everything. "This is the beginning of real cultural exchange. The Ravagers are sharing their art with us, and we're sharing ours with them." By the end of the day, Humans and Ravagers had shared a meal together in peace. Pictures of Cloud carefully tasting Earth foods and Jisoo enjoying Ravager cuisine spread across the galaxy. The creatures that everyone had once feared were now teaching humans new ways to cook, while learning human recipes in return. Food brings people together, Jisoo said as she watched Cloud enjoy another piece of grilled meat, even when those people happened to be giant space creatures that everyone thought were monsters. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council glowed with soft blue light. Representatives from 100 different worlds sat in their special seats, all waiting for this historic moment. Dr. Han Jisoo stood at the center of the hall, with Cloud floating gently beside her. "We are here today," said the council leader, "to recognize the extraordinary achievement of the human species in establishing peaceful relations with the Ravagers." Jisoo looked up at Cloud, who was wearing a special translator device that showed his energy patterns as visible lights. He had learned to adjust his signals so they wouldn't overwhelm the sensitive equipment in the hall. 1 year ago, Jisoo began her speech. Everyone thought the Ravagers were monsters that could only destroy. Today, they sit with us as friends and teachers. They have shared their knowledge, their culture, and their art with us. In return, we have shared ours with them. The alien representatives whispered among themselves as Cloud demonstrated some of the gentle energy patterns they now use to communicate. Many of them had lost colonies to Ravager attacks in the past. Seeing one behave so peacefully was still shocking to them. The Ravagers were never mindless killers, Jisoo continued. They were afraid, just as we were afraid of them. They attacked because they thought we were a threat. But when we offered friendship instead of fear, they chose to be our friends. Park Minji and Lee Sungmin sat in the front row, holding data tablets that showed the progress of their research. They had proven that Ravagers had their own civilization, their own art, and their own dreams of peace. "Last month," Jisoo said, "the Ravagers helped us establish our first joint colony. Humans and Ravagers are now living and working together. They protect our ships, help us build in space, and share their understanding of the universe with us." Cloud made a series of beautiful light patterns. The translator showed his words. "Humans taught us that strength can be used to protect, not just to fight. We choose to be protectors now." The council leader stood up. "In recognition of this unprecedented achievement in peaceful relations, we award the Galactic Peace Prize to Dr. Han Jisoo and her team. Their work has not only ended the Ravager threat, it has given us new friends and allies." Jisoo accepted the prize, a crystal that glowed with all the colors of the galaxy. But she knew the real prize was much bigger than any award. She had helped 2 species move past their fears and find friendship. After the ceremony, many alien representatives came to meet Cloud. They were surprised to find that the creature they had feared for so long was curious about their cultures too. Cloud showed special interest in their different ways of preparing food, just as he had with human cuisine. "Food brings people together," Jisoo told a group of young aliens who asked how to make friends with Ravagers. "Start by sharing a meal. Show them you trust them enough to eat with them. The rest will follow naturally." As they left the council hall, Jisoo saw something that made her smile. A young alien child, instead of running away in fear, waved at Cloud. And Cloud, using the gesture he had learned from humans, waved back. 5 years had passed since humans first made friends with the Ravagers. Dr. Han Jisoo stood in the gleaming kitchen of the Earth Ravager Culinary Academy, watching her students at work. Both humans and Ravagers moved around the space, preparing dishes that combined techniques from both species. The academy was Jisoo's dream come true. It was a place where the 2 species could share their love of food and cooking. The building had been specially designed with areas for both human and Ravager cooking methods. "Careful with the energy field, Yumho," Jisoo called out to a human student who was learning to cook using Ravager techniques. "Remember what Cloud taught us. Gentle waves cook the food better than strong ones." Cloud, who was now the head teacher alongside Jisoo, floated near the ceiling. He was showing a group of young ravagers how to use human cooking tools with their large limbs. Their natural grace made it possible for them to handle even the smallest human equipment. Tonight's graduation dinner is very special, Jisoo told her students. We're hosting representatives from 20 different worlds. They want to learn how humans and ravagers work together. The kitchen was filled with wonderful smells. Human ovens produced fresh bread, while Ravager energy fields created exotic space-cooked delicacies. The two cooking styles had started to blend together, creating entirely new kinds of food. Park Min-ji entered the kitchen, carrying data tablets. After years of studying Ravager communication, she had become an expert in their culture. The latest survey is in, she said excitedly. 50 more worlds want to establish joint colonies with humans and ravagers. Lee Sung-min, who was testing new recipes at his station, looked up with a smile. Remember when everyone thought we were crazy for trying to make friends with them? Now they're the most requested allies in the galaxy. Jisoo watched as Cloud helped a human student perfect an energy cooking technique. The student's face lit up with joy when she got it right. Cloud made his happiness pattern, his scales shimmering with beautiful colors. The dining hall is ready, announced Captain Kim Do-ha, who had retired from space service to help run the academy. Our guests are arriving. The grand dining hall was a magnificent sight. The tables were arranged to accommodate both humans and ravagers comfortably. The lighting was designed to show off both human and ravager dishes at their best. As the guests arrived, Jisoo saw something that would have seemed impossible 5 years ago. Humans, ravagers, and aliens from many worlds sat down together, sharing food and friendship. Young ravagers played gentle games with human children, while adult ravagers discussed cooking techniques with famous human chefs. You have created something extraordinary here, a visiting diplomat told Jisoo. You've shown us that friendship can grow in the most unexpected places. Jisoo looked around the room at her students serving their carefully prepared dishes. Every plate told a story of cooperation and understanding. The feared beasts of space had become not just allies, but teachers, students, and dinner companions. It all started with one simple idea, Jisoo said, watching Cloud demonstrate a new cooking technique to an amazed audience. If we can share a meal together, we can learn to understand each other. The rest is just patience, trust, and a willingness to try new things. As the evening went on, the dining hall was filled with conversation, laughter, and the happy sounds of people enjoying good food together. The universe had changed, one meal at a time.